The forge fire crackled low in the corner, giving off a soft orange glow. Cale worked with quick hands, shaping the iron with a heavy hammer. Each strike echoed through the small, stone-walled shop like a heartbeat. Outside, elven guards marched past, their silver armor gleaming in the moonlight. They didn't look twice at Cale. To them, he was just another human, a smith, a servant, nothing more. But Cale's eyes burned with quiet defiance. He waited until the last pair of guards turned the corner. Then he pulled up a loose floor tile near the forge. Beneath it, wrapped in leather and cloth, was the thing he had hidden for years. Carefully, he unwrapped it, revealing a dark metal sphere etched with glowing lines that pulsed faintly like breath. The artifact was warm, almost alive. He didn't know exactly what it was, only that it had once belonged to the last human king before the elves conquered the realm. Passed down through whispered stories, smuggled from hand to hand, the relic had somehow found its way to Cale. The elves called it a myth. They were wrong. He reached out and touched it. The moment his fingers brushed the surface, the forge flames surged. The walls of the workshop seemed to vanish. Cale stood in a vast battlefield, not real, but a vision. Around him, armies clashed. Smoke filled the sky. In front of him stood a tall man in golden armor, holding the same relic. The man turned and looked straight at Cale. "You are not ready," the voice said, not in words, but in thought. Cale gasped and pulled his hand back. The forge dimmed. The vision vanished. He staggered, heart pounding. Not ready? Then he would become ready. The next day, he left a simple blade at the edge of the market, a signal to the rebels. That night, he met them in the woods. Only 10 of them, farmers, runaways, old soldiers hiding from the law. Weak, the elves said, powerless, but Cale held the relic high, and it glowed. The time of silence is over, Cale told them. We have a weapon the elves fear. They just don't know it yet. One of the rebels, a woman named Lyra, stepped forward. You've seen something. What is it? Not what, Cale said. Who? A general. A ghost of the old war. He's waiting. They stared at him like he was mad, but they didn't walk away. That night, they burned an elven grain store. The flames reached high into the sky. Cale watched them from the tree line, the relic pulsing at his side. The elves would call it an accident. A spark, maybe. Let them laugh. Let them look down on him. They would see soon enough. This time humans would not kneel. The night air was cold, but Cale's hands were warm. The relic pulsed again, steady as a heartbeat. It was tied to his belt now, hidden under a rough cloak. He could feel it watching, listening, thinking. The rebels sat in a circle around a small campfire. Their faces were tired, dirt-smudged, and wary. Lyra passed out stale bread while an older man, Bram, sharpened a blade with a piece of stone. We're not soldiers, Bram muttered. We're farmers. Thieves. We're nothing. We were nothing, Cale said softly. Now we have this. He placed the relic on a flat stone beside the fire. It glowed softly, casting strange shadows across their faces. The rebels leaned in. Even Bram stopped sharpening. This relic holds memories, Cale said. Battles, maps, voices. I don't know how. It's alive. It teaches. Teaches what? Lyra asked. War, Cale answered, and how to win it. The group fell silent. Somewhere in the forest, a night bird cried. Cale looked into the fire. Last night, after we burned the grain store, I dreamed of a battle. 10,000 men in perfect formation. They moved like one. I saw where the enemy would strike and how to stop them. It wasn't just a dream. It was real. Once. Bram scoffed. Dreams won't stop elven steel. No, Cale agreed. But strategy will. He reached into a pack and pulled out a rough drawing on a bit of parchment. It showed a winding path through the forest, with a small elven patrol route marked in red. We strike here, Cale said, pointing. Tomorrow. We'll set traps. No direct fight. They're not expecting us. They think humans are too scared or too slow. We prove them wrong. Lyra leaned closer, studying the map. It might work. It will, Cale said, his voice firm. The next evening, as twilight fell, the rebels moved into position. Cale crouched behind a fallen tree, eyes fixed on the path. The relic sat in a pouch near his chest, its pulse quickening as footsteps approached. Elven soldiers marched in neat rows, their silver armor glinting. They talked in smooth, mocking tones. Another quiet night, one said. No sign of the rats. Then the first trap snapped shut. A log swung from the trees, knocking 2 elves down. Nets dropped from the branches. Rebels leaped from hiding using speed and surprise. It wasn't a battle, it was a message. The elves retreated in confusion, leaving behind weapons and wounded. Cale stood tall in the clearing, heart pounding. The humans had won. No deaths, no losses. A small victory, but a real one. Back at the camp, Lyra laughed for the first time in weeks. Bram nodded slowly, his eyes wide with new respect. You were right, he said. The elves won't see us coming. Cale looked at the glowing relic, then at the stars above. They will, he said, but by then, it'll be too late. The smoke rolled over the treetops like a creeping fog. Cale crouched in the brush, watching the elven outpost burn. His face was streaked with ash, and his heart pounded with a strange mix of fear and pride. They had done it again. Another strike. Another elven supply post destroyed. The rebels didn't fight like an army. They didn't march in lines or shout orders. They were quiet, quick, like wolves in the woods. This time, the Heart of Embers had shown Cale something different. How to break morale, not just bones. Cut their supplies, hit their pride. Make the enemy fear shadows, not swords. Lyra appeared beside him, breathing hard but grinning. That was too easy. Cale gave her a tired smile. They still think we're disorganized. Just luck and fire. Let them think that, she said. Makes it more fun. The group moved through the trees, heading back to the hidden camp deep in the cliffs. The elves would search the area for hours, but they'd find nothing. Not a footprint, not a sound. At the camp, the rebels gathered to count what they had taken. Arrows, food, and most important, scrolls, maps, orders. One scroll bore the seal of a noble house. Cale unrolled it by the firelight. It showed a new elven road being built, one that would let them move soldiers quickly through the forest. It wasn't finished yet, but it was close. They're getting nervous, Cale said. They're building faster, rushing supplies. They're afraid of something. They're afraid of us, Bram muttered. He sat beside the fire, nursing a wound on his arm. Who would thought? Cale didn't answer. His eyes stayed on the scroll. At the bottom, in elegant elven script, was a name. Commander Virulin, an old general, a war hero. If the elves were sending him, they were serious now. That night, Cale couldn't sleep. The relic glowed softly at his side. He placed his hand on it, and visions came swift and sharp. Men in hoods poisoning wells, women lighting fire traps in the dark. Saboteurs, spies, and secret networks. The humans of old had been more than warriors. They had been clever. Cale woke before sunrise. The fire had burned down to embers. He stood, brushing off his cloak. We don't fight their way, he told the others as they stirred. We never could, but we can win, if we keep thinking like they never expect us to. He pointed to the map. This road, we won't destroy it. We'll use it. Let them build it. Let them think it helps them. And when they bring their army through it, we'll trap it from both ends. The rebels looked at him, quiet at first. Then Lyra nodded. That's madness, Bram muttered. But it just might work. Cale picked up the relic and tied it tight to his side. Let them laugh again, he said. They always laugh before they fall. Snow fell silently, blanketing the forest in white. The cold bit deep into Cale's skin, but he didn't notice. His breath came out in clouds as he crouched behind a thick pine. In the distance, a small human outpost smoked, surrounded by elven soldiers. Cale's heart clenched. The elves were merciless. The outpost was home to refugees, farmers, hunters, even children. They had no weapons, no chance. Yet the elves struck like wolves, cutting them down without mercy. Cale's rebel scouts had sent word. He arrived too late. Lyra appeared beside him, her face pale but fierce. "They killed the farmers," she said, voice shaking. Not a soul escaped. Cale clenched his fists. Anger and guilt burned in his chest. This can't happen again. But the elves were not done. That night, Cale sat alone by the fire, the relic resting on his lap. Its glow was dim, but inside he heard a voice, a whisper low and urgent. "You carry Ashmane's mind. Learn. Be ready." Cale closed his eyes and let the visions come. He saw battles from long ago. Armies moving like rivers, blades flashing under the sun, plans made and broken. The memories of Ashmane, the greatest human general, filled his mind. But with the knowledge came pain. The past was cruel. Ashmane's victories had cost many lives. Cale saw himself standing in cold fields, watching friends fall. The price of war was heavy. He opened his eyes. "I must be stronger," he whispered. "For them." The next day, Cale called the rebels together. "We've been fighting like scattered sparks, but Ashmane teaches us to be a flame." He laid out a new plan. "We cannot meet the elves in open battle. They are too skilled, too proud. But in the forest, on frozen ground, we have advantage." Cale pointed to a narrow pass covered in ice. "We lure them here. The snow will slow their horses. The cold will freeze their spells. We will strike quickly, then disappear." Lyra frowned. "It's risky. If we fail, they will finish what they started." Cale nodded. "I know. But waiting means more deaths. We fight now or never." The rebels prepared silently. They sharpened blades, gathered supplies, and whispered prayers. When the Elven patrol entered the pass, Cale's rebels were ready. They hid behind trees and rocks, blending with the snow. The first arrow flew silently, striking an Elven scout. Chaos erupted. The elves charged, but the ice betrayed them. Horses slipped, men fell. Cale moved through the battle like a shadow, guiding his fighters. The relic pulsed, filling him with calm and clarity. But victory came at a cost. Lyra was wounded. Bram fought bravely but was captured. As the elves retreated, Cale knelt beside Lyra. "We will save him," he promised. "No one is left behind." The cold wind howled around them, but Cale's resolve burned hotter than ever. The war was far from over. Cale stood on a ridge overlooking the valley below. The wind tugged at his cloak, and the relic at his side pulsed steadily, like a quiet heartbeat. Below, a line of elven soldiers marched in perfect order, silver armor shining, banners waving. Among them was Lord Virelin, the elven general Cale had heard so much about. Virelin was known for his ruthless skill and unshakable confidence. To the elves, Cale was still just a rebel, a troublemaker at best, but soon that would change. Cale turned to his rebels, now stronger and better trained. "This is no ordinary fight," he said. "Virelin will expect the usual hit-and-run tactics, but we will give him something new." He laid out a plan, bold and dangerous. They would use the terrain, the relic's knowledge, and their own cunning to outsmart the elves. That night, under a moonless sky, Cale led his fighters through hidden paths in the forest. The rebels moved like ghosts, silent and fast. They reached a narrow canyon where the elven army planned to camp. Cale stopped and pointed to the steep cliffs above. "We place the traps here. When the elves settle, we strike." His hands moved over the relic, which glowed softly. In his mind he heard Ashmane's voice, calm and sharp. "Use their pride against them." The next morning the elven army marched into the canyon. They set up camp, confident and careless. Cale's rebels waited patiently. Then, with a signal, rocks and logs tumbled down from the cliffs, crashing into the elven tents. Soldiers scrambled to defend themselves. But that was just the start. Kale led a sudden attack from the trees. The rebels struck with precision. Arrows flew, swords flashed, and chaos spread like wildfire. Virelin shouted orders, trying to restore control. He was a master of battle, but Kale was faster. The relic showed him every move before it happened. Kale ducked a swing of Virelin's sword and smiled. "You underestimate us." The fight was fierce, but the rebels pushed the elves back. When the dust settled, Virelin retreated with what was left of his army. Kale stood on the battlefield, breathing hard. His body ached, but his spirit soared. The rebels gathered around him, eyes shining with hope. For the first time, they saw themselves not as slaves, but as warriors. Lyra approached, her arm healing but still weak. "You did it," she said. "You turned the tide." Kale shook his head. "This is only the beginning. The elves will come back stronger." He looked down at the relic, feeling its weight. It was more than a weapon, it was a burden. Ashmane's memories whispered in his mind, warning him of the cost. Kale clenched his fists. "We must be ready, smarter, stronger." That night, as the camp settled, Kale stood watch alone. The stars above were cold and distant, but in his heart, a fire burned bright. The war was changing, and so was he. The night was thick with silence. Only the rustle of leaves and the distant call of an owl broke the stillness. Kale moved like a shadow through the rebel camp, his eyes sharp beneath the hood of his cloak. He knew the elves were watching. They always watched. The relic at his side pulsed softly, like a heartbeat in the dark. Tonight, it seemed to hum louder, urging him forward. Kale stopped at the edge of the camp, where Lyra sat by the fire, tending her wounded arm. She looked up, surprised to see him. "There's something coming," Kale said quietly. "The elves won't just send soldiers next time. They'll send spies, assassins." Lyra nodded, her eyes steady. "We must be ready." Together, they gathered a small group, those they trusted most, whisperers, scouts, and fighters who could move without making a sound. Kale's voice dropped low. "We need information. Secrets. We strike not just with swords, but with knowledge." Under the cover of darkness, the group slipped into the forest. They followed a narrow path to an elven outpost hidden deep in the trees. Guards patrolled with sharp eyes, but Kale's team moved like ghosts, avoiding every trap. Inside, they found scrolls and maps, letters sealed with the mark of Virelin himself. Kale's heart quickened as he read the orders. The elves planned a massive attack, a strike that could crush the rebels once and for all. They had only days. The group moved quickly, taking what they could. Then, as they slipped back toward the camp, a soft sound stopped them. Whispers carried on the wind. From the shadows stepped a figure, an elven scout, caught and silent. His eyes were cold, but there was fear too. Kale's hand rested on his sword, but Lyra raised a hand. "We need answers." The scout spoke in a low voice. "Your relic is more powerful than you know. The elves fear it because it holds a key, one that can unlock an ancient power. Virelin wants it. He will stop at nothing." Kale's mind raced. The relic had shown him memories and strategy, but a power? Something hidden? "We won't let him take it," Kale said firmly. "Not while I live." Back at the camp, the rebels prepared for war like never before. Walls were built, traps set, and every fighter drilled. The knowledge from the scout had changed everything. That night, Kale stood beneath the stars, the relic glowing brighter than before. Ashmane's voice whispered once more, "Prepare. The final battle approaches." Kale clenched his fists, feeling the weight of history on his shoulders. The elves had laughed when he began, but soon the laughter would end. Dark clouds gathered over the valley, hiding the stars. The wind howled like a beast ready to pounce. Kale stood on a hill, watching the elven army march through the forest. Thousands of silver-clad soldiers, led by General Virelin, moved with deadly purpose. The rebels waited below, hidden in caves and behind rocks. Their faces were grim, but their eyes burned with hope. This was the moment they had trained for, the moment to prove that humans were no longer weak. Cale held the relic tightly. It pulsed with power stronger than ever. He could feel Ashmane's voice inside his mind, steady and commanding. "Strike with the storm, Cale. Use the earth. Use the fear." The plan was bold. The rebels would block the elves in the narrow canyon, where the river carved deep into the rocks. They would use traps, fire, and the relic's power to turn the land against the enemy. As the elven soldiers entered the canyon, Cale gave the signal. Suddenly, ropes snapped, releasing boulders from above. Rocks crashed down, sending soldiers flying. The rebels attacked from both sides, arrows darkening the sky. The elves fought fiercely. Virelin's sword flashed as he cut through the rebels, his voice loud with orders. But the canyon was their trap. The frozen river blocked their retreat. Cale felt the relic's power growing. He reached out with his mind, and the earth trembled. Cracks appeared in the ice, spreading like lightning. Water burst through, freezing the feet of the elven soldiers. Chaos spread among the enemy ranks. But the battle was far from over. Virelin saw Cale in charge. Their swords clashed, sparks flying. Cale felt every move, every strike, as if Ashmane's mind guided his hands. They fought fiercely, neither giving ground. Around them, the rebels held the line. Lyra fought beside Cale, her eyes fierce despite her injury. Together, they pushed forward. Suddenly, the relic flared bright, sending a wave of light through the canyon. The elves staggered, blinded and confused. Cale took the chance. With a powerful strike, he disarmed Virelin. The general fell to his knees, breathing hard. "Enough," Cale said, standing over him. "This ends now." Virelin looked up, eyes burning with anger but also respect. "You fight like a true general," he said softly. "The elves have underestimated you, and your kind." Cale nodded. "We will fight for freedom, not just for humans, but for all who suffer under your rule." The elven soldiers lowered their weapons, watching their leader. The rebellion had won this battle, but the war was still ahead. As dawn broke over the frozen canyon, Cale looked at the rising sun. The relic glowed warmly at his side, a reminder of the past and a promise for the future. He turned to his rebels. "This is our time. We fight not just to survive, but to change the world." The wind carried their battle cries through the valley. The age of humans had begun. The sun rose slowly over the battlefield, casting golden light on the frozen earth. The air was sharp and cold, but a quiet calm settled over the valley. Cale stood among his people, tired but proud. The long fight had changed everything. The elven army had retreated, their pride broken and their power shaken. For the first time, humans stood tall, not as slaves or shadows, but as equals. Cale held the relic carefully. Its glow was soft, like a heartbeat slowing after a storm. He remembered Ashmane's voice one last time. "Victory is not the end. It is the beginning." Around him, the rebels cheered softly. They had lost friends and faced dark nights, but now hope bloomed. Lyra came to his side, her arm healed but still tender. "What happens now?" she asked. Cale looked toward the distant forest, where elven flags no longer waved. "Now we build, we heal. We prove that strength is more than swords." The rebels gathered wood and tools. Farmers began clearing fields. Children laughed and played, no longer afraid of the elven patrols. But Cale knew the war had taught them more than fighting. It had taught them courage. It had taught them hope. And it had taught them that even when the world said they were weak, humans could rise, fierce, clever, and unstoppable. In the distance, a small group of elven nobles approached. They carried no weapons, only words of peace. Virelin stepped forward, his armor battered but his gaze steady. "You have shown us what we did not believe possible," he said. "Humans are not our enemies. Perhaps they never were." Cale nodded slowly. We will hold you to that." Together, they began talks to rebuild the land torn by war. The relic, the symbol of their fight, was placed in a new hall, not as a weapon, but as a reminder. A reminder that no one should be judged by birth or power, that even the smallest spark could start a great flame. That day, the world changed. Humans and elves would still have challenges ahead. Old wounds would take time to heal, but the future was theirs to shape. Cale looked up at the sky, feeling the warmth of the sun on his face. The war had ended. The true battle for peace, for respect, for hope was just beginning. And Cale was ready. Because now he was more than a rebel. He was a leader, a symbol, a hero, the flame of humanity.